First, now, what scenarios do you foresee for the losing candidate? Will they play a significant role in the U.S. politics moving forward? Are we anticipating challenging the results, lawsuits? Are we anticipating an embrace of the losing candidate or members of the party of the losing candidate, or a very polarized situation with reports of the U.S. democracy being at risk?
Well, first off, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be back. And I would expect, given the results that we're seeing, that the person who loses, and right now it's like it will be Harris, in fact, acknowledge that and will concede the election. It probably won't be done tonight. It probably won't be done maybe for a day or two. But as soon as there's any certainty with any of the three states, which would be Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, then we'll see Harris concede, because at that point the election will in fact go to Donald Trump. But I don't see any major opposition or any kind of role really for the losing candidate in the background. America is polarized. America is going through generational change as we speak. But this is just another transition. And one thing you have to remember about American politics is that we have many branches. We have three main branches of government. We have a wide bureaucracy filled with thousands of workers, and they provide an anchor and stability. And regardless of who wins the election, there will mostly be continuity within the American political system. Yeah, we are a polarized society in a sense, but it's not really as much political as it is geographical. It's really the urban centers versus the rural. And in a sense, we have two competing cultures within the United States. And so if you look at the Republican dominant states, even in the major cities, the Democrats won. And in the Democratic dominant states in the countryside, the Republicans won. So really, we have a different split within the United States public than is commonly understood, but I don't see much of a change. In fact, I think we're going to go back to the situation of the Trump years, where we see a president who likes to make a lot of statements that in the end aren't backed up, because there's a big difference between rhetoric and reality. But I do have to say, though, at the same time, it's amazing that this will be the first time since George Bush won 20 years ago that the Republican candidate will likely win the popular vote. So according to the latest estimates of the New York Times, Donald Trump is likely to win the popular vote by 1 to 1.9% over Harris, which nobody really predicted. And so this is a much bigger change, a much bigger victory for Trump than anyone anticipated, if in fact the numbers do hold out. And I would recommend patience, because as we learned in 2020, the results of the first night may in fact be changed by the votes that come in through absentee ballot. But that said, I expect no really substantive changes in the United States, except that we will now have a Republican president. Another major change is the Senate. It was very likely to become Republican-led, and the House is up for grabs. Nobody knows if the House will in fact be Democratic or Republican, but in that regard, a major partisan change. But it's hard to argue that the Republicans would have a legitimacy problem if they also win the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. And that's the way the election right now is turning out.
So you've mentioned that the country is going through a generational change. So can you give us a sense of how young voters and first-time voters are responding to the candidates? support to Ukraine or ending the war in Gaza, or are they mainly concerned about their own domestic issues, healthcare, job opportunities, their own state of the economy?
This is something that actually emerged a few months back, and many people didn't pay attention to it, but young voters in the United States are more likely to vote Republican now than ever before in the past. And the reason is because their job prospects and their financial situation has become worse off. And so all of them, if you go back and take polls nationwide, there is a tendency among young voters to believe that they are worse off under Biden than they were under Trump. And so many of the voters that in the past, historically, the young votes tend to vote much more predominantly for Democratic candidates. These votes now are in fact either we're seeing people not voting or a large percentage of voting for Republicans. So within these marginal areas, I think it's mostly domestic issues. Foreign policy really matters in some sectors, but overall, among the young voters, it's not as significant. It's more of a, for I guess the elite young, which would be the ones who are attending colleges, we would see a much more, their preferences would be more guided by foreign policy issues, in particular, the war in Gaza, just the general conditions in the Middle East. But for overall, for the young, it's much more economic. And the difficult thing is that the cost of living increases, just the way inflation has hit most Americans. Everyone does in fact feel worse off, even if their salary's gone up, their purchasing power has declined. And if you take away hope from people that they will have a better tomorrow, it's hard then to gain support for the party that's actually in office. So, I mean, that's the reality. It's predominantly economic issues, and only for a small minority would it be foreign policy issues. But for the Democrats, it was a much bigger problem for them to have the economy decline in the way that it did.
Mm-hmm. And what role would you say did social media and digital campaigns play this year? And have there been notable trends in voter engagement online with the use of AI, customized campaigning for the target voters?
I think that for AI, there was a big difference, and I think both parties were using it. And I think social media played a much bigger role in the 2008 election that saw Barack Obama come to power, because the Democrats used that medium so much better than the Republicans in that election. But going forward, I don't think that either side truly benefited. And the one major problem with social media, as I'm sure that you're aware of, is that it increases partisanship and it dissolves the middle. And so because of that, because of the algorithms that are present within social media that are driven by AI, people tend to see political posts that coincide with their own and become more entrenched there, and they fail to see the other side. And so the main issue for that is that we have become polarized. And it's harder for, and this is a very big problem within modern democracies, is to try to find a middle ground, a means to compromise, a means to have dialogue and discussion. And that's where social media and even the use of AI really hurts the political process today.
Mm-hmm. So now, in your opinion, what will be the biggest challenges facing the winning candidate, be it Trump or Harris, both domestically and internationally, as they step into office? Will there be new challenges or unforeseen difficulties or obstacles, or will it be just living up to the promises and the pledges they made?
That is going to be a very difficult thing for either candidate. And so this transition now, once there is in fact a winner, what we should see is a major change in rhetoric. And so we would see the president, and again, it could be either Harris or Trump, but it's likely to be Trump, will need to craft a position to present his or her foreign policy to the rest of the world. And so in all of the campaign, they were basically addressing the American domestic audience. Now, as the heir apparent of the presidency, they will have to change their rhetoric and actually now address the global audience, because the role of the president is predominantly within foreign policy. They made a lot of promises on domestic issues, but the reality is that Congress really determines those. And the president has no real authority except for issuing executive orders, but an executive order has no legal basis. So the president's main task will be to create a coherent foreign policy. And the one thing that we should all be aware of is that Donald Trump has 4 years of experience of being president. And so he's probably going to be able to build on that. And if you remember his time as president, in particular, there were major changes in American positions towards the Middle East and towards Europe that were changed in the Biden administration. And so one of the elements will be, and this is very important for the United States, regardless of who is the president, is how to maintain continuity and strengthen our allies and our long-term relationships, regardless of who is president. So we've got to have a clear, coherent vision. And of course, the president now has the main task of forming a cabinet and hiring thousands of people who will become political appointees within the new administration. So they will be very busy, but their rhetoric will change, and they will have a different tone, a whole different dialogue that will be going on with America and the world.
Professor of International Relations at the University of Alabama, Dr. G. Doug Davis, thank you very much, sir, for joining us.